Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss, only on LA Talk Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Welcome to What Women Want Talk Radio for our show tonight, Ditching Those Mental Blocks. I'm your host, Judy Goss, along with my awesome co-host, Kristen West. 3 years of airing What Women Want here on LA Talk Radio. I want to thank all of our listeners to getting us over 700,000 downloads so far. We just love every show, and we hope you do also. Some captivating conversations, let me tell you. If you want to listen to past shows, go to LA Talk Radio's website archives or subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play. You'll hear some of our celebrity guests who have been with us, like former O.J. Simpson prosecutor Marcia Clark, 5-time Olympian Jackie Edwards, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff author Dr. Christine Carlson, and last week we had former Today Show anchor Jenna Wolf was on. She was fantastic. We've had famous actresses, singers, entrepreneurs, love coaches, tarot card readers, all kinds of women, and some men too, who are so inspiring and very unique in their own ways. You are listening to What Women Want here on LA Talk Radio for our show tonight, Ditching Those Mental Blocks. Okay, a little bit about me. I'm Judy Goss, and besides being the host of this awesome radio show, I am a TV host, a regular contributor on NBC and Fox, an entrepreneur. I founded the nationally acclaimed What Women Want networking group 5.5 years ago. It now has 20 chapters around the country. I'm a St. Martin's Press author and a freelance writer for New York Lifestyles magazine. And the most important job of all, I'm the mom of twin girls who are now almost 13 years old. 2 13-year-olds, females, girls in the house, along with me. It makes for an interesting household, let me tell you. Okay, not to be confusing, but my networking company, What Women Want Networking, same name as our show, What Women Want, we're having our first National Women's Conference called Spirit of Women in Atlanta, October 7th through 8th. spiritofwomenconference.com, featuring VIP sponsor womenforone.com. The founder of Women for One is Kelly McNellis, and she'll be running a workshop during the conference called Discover Your Messy Truth. So I'm just thrilled to death. And this is the first Lifestyles Networking Conference that I've ever heard of. We also have psychotherapist to the stars and award-winning TV reporter Dr. Robbie Ludwig from New York City. She's coming down and being our keynote at the conference. So if you're interested, please go to spiritofwomenconference.com. I believe those tickets are on sale until about July 15th. Our show tonight is Ditching Those Mental Blocks here on LA Talk Radio with your hosts, Judy Goss, that's me, and Kristen West. Now, I'm sure a lot of us have physical blocks we'd like to ditch, and that's our raging hormones, right? Well, Dr. Timothy Morley from Full Circle Women's Health can help you do just that. Dr. Morley, a bioidentical hormone expert and board-certified physician, is dedicated to helping patients find relief from hormone imbalances. His practice concentrates on overall health and wellness, focusing on healthy aging through bioidentical hormone therapy, as well as nutrition and exercise. And if you're in the New York area, he's having an event May 24th this month at his office in White Plains. So please email us at the show if you're interested in going to that, whatwomenwantshow@gmail.com. Now, my amazing co-host is also with me, Kristen West. She's an award-winning actress and producer. She's the winner of a Best Actress Award for the film Seeking Valentina, nominated for Best Actress and the Mary Austin Award for Female Producers. She won the Indie Spirit Award at the beginning of this year at the Idlewild International Film Festival. Wow, Kristen, and you're becoming quite a social media expert. Let me tell you, I appreciate all that love out there about the show. We're really getting out there.
Well, I think what we have to offer is so important, and our listeners are so important to us, and the people that we can help by having these dialogues, that I feel it's important and necessary to share as much as possible. And if you haven't voted already, vote in our poll about what blocks you. so that we can better ascertain what our listeners' needs are. I'm really excited to learn what people...
Where can they find it?
Check my Twitter feed at Kristen_West. It's also on the event page for today's broadcast. That's the Facebook version. And I believe you retweeted it as well. And I think Dr. Colleen, who is our guest tonight, retweeted it. So please vote.
Yes, I was actually being facetious on where to find it because I wanted our listeners to know also. But yes, we do retweet and we read it, all of the posts and we try to answer, all of them if we can. And we do want to know what's blocking you because we have two experts on tonight and one of them specializes in relationship and marriage counseling therapy. And the other one concentrates more on money blocks. I understand that she does do some love blocks as well. I don't even know what to call them. But, I know we all have them, whether we realize it or not. And I really admire these coaches, the patience they must have to break through. I mean, I can't imagine what it takes some of their clients, right?
It's mind-boggling what people who are in caring professions undergo and go through to get a person to a healthier space. And I'm really excited to talk to both Jennifer and Colleen tonight about this.
Me too. Well, let's see how they do it. And maybe we can get some advice for ourselves too on these different categories of blocking and in different places where they might be and what we can do.
Sure. Well, let's bring on Dr. Colleen Mullen. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's the founder of the Coaching Through Chaos private practice in San Diego and host of both the Coaching Through Chaos and Shrink to Shrink on Film podcasts. She has spent nearly 2 decades helping her clients overcome addictions, have healthy relationships, recover from trauma, and cope with emotional obstacles while empowering them to reach their goals and love themselves. Her work and writing have been featured on Fortune, Psych Central, Everyday Power Blog, and the Huffington Post, among many other popular sites. Welcome to the show, Dr. Colleen. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you both so much for having me on. I've been really looking forward to this all week.
Well, I've been excited ever since you and I were at the St. Martin's Animal Rescue event this past week. So I've been really enthused to speak with you. It was great to finally meet you in person. And
I also want to interrupt and thank Matt Chasen because he brings so many awesome people together. And I know he's a talent manager and marketing manager and that's his career, but he really does bring all kinds of incredible people together. So thank you, Matt.
Yes, that's right. He's been a great connection to have made and for all the connections he's helping me make. So fantastic. And I have to say, Judy, with everything that you do, I can't imagine you ever have any mental blocks. And you have 2 teenage daughters at home. Gosh.
Is that a trick question?
Well, you certainly seem to probably have ways to get around them that have worked for you in the past.
My gosh, one of the reasons for having people like you on the show is to try to figure out what the heck is in my brain.
Because I really thought, gosh, she doesn't even have time.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you. But you know what? And maybe that's one of my blocks. Kristen said it right when she said that, we have so many people on the show that have so many, amazing things to say and education and wisdom to spread to our listeners. And I really try to put myself in someone who's listening, put myself in their place and think, what would I want to hear if I was tuning into a radio show right now? Besides all the main, the current events and all that type of thing, what would I want to learn? What would I want to hear? Whose background would I want to find out about? And that's how we choose our guests. So with that, Kristen, I know you have a few questions for Dr. Colleen Mullen.
Well, I do. And you have 20 years of experience helping clients with all sorts of messy and complicated, sticky issues. And I wanted to know, in your opinion, are mental blocks self-created? Are they chemical in the brain? Are they rooted in the past? Are they circumstantial? What really is the driving force behind a block that we can't seem to shatter?
Yeah, and it's funny. That's what my whole day with my clients today has focused on in particular. All their blocks were coming to the surface. So it really, what I have found is that
Well, that's a good thing. That means you're doing your job, right?
Yes, exactly. and so, it's our past. Everything that we bring to our current life today influences what happens to us in the moment. So, in addition to the relationship counseling, I've been helping with people with all sorts of messy situations in their lives, whether they were caused by themselves or they were brought on, by their environment. And, there's similar themes to mental blocks. But in relationships, it's funny, and I always hate telling people this, but it's usually that our parents live in our heads. Whatever their relationship looked like, it translates into what we do or don't do in our relationships with our intimate partners, about how we interact with them, because we have the things going on in our head, the voices in our head that say, well, I don't want to be like them, or I want to be just like them, or whatever it is, watching how the parents used to talk to each other or not talk to each other. So that kind of stuff, the models that we had growing up of how to interact with others, that can block us in intimacy and in and block us from having a healthy relationship. But we also have, there's common themes like fear of failure, lack of confidence, fear of the unknown, and then very common, very trendy right now is people talking about perfection paralysis. And I certainly can talk about how to overcome those, but those are very common themes. Oh, and multitasking is something. And I think we all have kind of heard everything that, multitasking doesn't really do us any good, but we all live lives like, Judy, just that whole list that you said. And I relate, there's a lot of things always going on, but sometimes, you inevitably end up multitasking, and then you have to go, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Like, why am I trying to get 4 things done at one time, when really, if I just stopped and breathed for a minute, I could separate that out and probably get it done a lot easier with a lot less stress.
And I know a lot of people bring too many things on to do in their life. And I don't know if I'm talking about me or a friend here, but I know they bring so many things on to do and be busy to distract themselves from looking at other parts of their life, right?
Well, there is that too. Our mental blocks certainly help keep us from dealing with things, and sometimes in the distraction, when we find ways to distract ourselves, we don't have to deal with what's blocking us. So the distraction can work both ways. Sometimes it's a product of the mental block, and sometimes it's to divert us from it. So, and kind of, then keeps us locked in it.
Well, I think you brought up a whole Pandora's box of blocks. And I think one of and I think one of the most important things to do with those blocks is build something with them. And on your website, you said, our day-to-day thoughts tend to oscillate between dwelling on the past and stressing about the future. Is being more present the key to calming that oscillation down, especially when we're blocked?
Yes, and that's right. It takes slowing. I talk to people so much about just slowing down our reactions to things. We go on autopilot so much, and we have all the unconscious baggage from the past that kind of influences how we bump around emotionally in the present. And then we have the fear. A lot of people, are just scared of the future. And I personally, I don't relate to that one. I kind of am one of those, I related to Jenna's episode last week, the bold, I just jump in and do things. But, a lot of people get stuck on that and go, oh my gosh, well, I shouldn't do this because what if it doesn't work out? Or what if it, something bad happens? Or what if my friends abandon me? Or what if my partner leaves me? And it just stops them in their tracks. And so, pulling yourself back and going, wait a minute, but today is today. So what do I need to do today to deal with what I have to deal with? It doesn't matter in what the future looks like. I even deal with that with my recovery clients, my drug and alcohol clients. They'll say, I only want to do this for 6 months, or I don't want to have to not drink for, forever. I'll say, you know what? I don't care what forever looks like. I want to know what today is going to look like, and how are we going to slow you down so that you can just get through today.
I think it's interesting that you're talking about people speeding through things and being on autopilot as a sort of a mechanism for distancing themselves to what actually really may be hurtful and painful and unprocessed for them. And I think that's
oh, sure.
I think that's so wise of you to really consciously, in your practice, slow people down and really make them engage with what are seemingly surface things a little bit more.
Yes.
Do you think that there's a gift in a block, that the block shows up because we need to address it, and that there's a prize at the end for dealing with the block? Is that a happy thought, or is that maybe a too happy and not so realistic, or blocks just blocks?
Well, I'm an optimistic person, so I like that idea. So I think that's a creative way of looking at it. And but definitely, the blocks that we have usually do represent something that we need to work through. So I think, we can talk about some short ways to kind of make it easier to tackle some of the things that you need to do to get past these blocks. But the big work comes from working through it. Why is there a fear of failure? Why do you get paralyzed with that? Why is perfection something that keeps, smacking you in the face every time you have a new task that you have to do or a new job that you want to take on? I mean, I would think with working in the film business as you do, there's a lot of perfection paralysis that goes on, and you must know people that deal with that. They just can't, they have creative blocks, they call them, but it's usually about perfectionism because they're so, and vulnerability is something that underlies a lot of these blocks, right? Because when we're fearful of something, we are afraid of being vulnerable, right? Because we don't want to look bad. We don't want to feel bad. We don't want other people to see us at our worst if something were to go wrong. But we never think, gosh, I just want to jump in and do it. And I'll take my chances, but that is exactly how to overcome the perfection paralysis. You just go, well, what is the thing I'm afraid of doing? Let me just go and do it. And you have to jump in with 2 feet, though. You can't go, well, I'll keep 1 foot out the door. You have to go all in and just jump. And usually, as you said, there might be, is there a gift at the end of it? Well, I think anybody learning why that block comes up for them and how to overcome them, that is the gift, because then they no longer have that block.
It's certainly true with vulnerability and perfection paralysis, and I think the conditions in our society at the moment, because, as Judy said, we're doing a lot of social media, but sometimes you only get the highlight reel of someone's life, what they have self-selected you to see, and so you think everybody's life is perfect, literally picture perfect, not messy, always a vacation, and it's not, and I think that's a hard thing and a challenge going forward in society, is that perfection paralysis has to be addressed in ways that you're addressing it and others are addressing it. I wanted to bring the conversation. Sometimes our head says one thing and our heart says something completely different. And that is creating the block. It's the tension between the head-based thinking and the heart-based feeling. And how do you reconcile that? How do you approach someone in your practice who's got that tension?
Yes, and that would show up. I see that a lot, obviously, in the relationship work that I do with couples. We'll have people saying that I can think of a handful of couples I'm working with right now. They love each other dearly and are great at supporting each other, but as they get closer and closer to they're getting engaged, they're talking about their life together, and as they start getting closer, their heart is telling them they should get closer, but their head kind of gets in the way and go, wait a minute. Now the baggage comes up and says, you need to be scared, because somebody cheated on you in the past, so you need to worry about this, or your parents didn't work out, so why would you think that you should be able to survive a marriage, and so that happens quite frequently. So how to reconcile that, and of course my frame of reference that I'm talking about this with is with couples that are self-selecting for relationship counseling. So so I have willing participants on the couch with me every day, but how a person can do that on their own is to be very mindful and notice it, because what you'll find is, and people do it all the time, they'll I'll just keep using the example, getting engaged, and then all of a sudden they recognize all these big problems in the relationship, and it's usually they're things that are made up considering that they've moved and progressed, along a normal path in the relationship that way. Be mindful of it and go, why am I picking a fight with my partner every other day at this point? What's going on? Why do they annoy me so much? And really, again, slow down and listen to yourself and go, what am I really fighting against? And why would I be doing this? And you might, things come to mind.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just curious about this, what you just said. What is a key factor in deciphering whether somebody is making something up or not? Like when you're in therapy and you start to hear someone talk about and you're thinking, oh, I know she's making this up. How can you tell?
Oh, well, and I think where he's talking, I don't think people necessarily make things up. I might have been unclear, but I was talking about like what goes on for them is their perception, right? Their perception changes. And so in the room with the clients, and for anybody listening, this is a tip they can use in their relationship is, a lot of times people go and say, well, he looked like he was upset with me, so I got mad, right? And so we go, well, what were you seeing, and did you check? Did you say, you look like you're upset? Are you mad at me? And personalize it, right? Because everybody does that in their relationship. They assume everything their partner is doing at any given moment is reacting to them. And so I teach my clients so often to check their perceptions. And I'll say, well, did you ask them about that? And what did they say? And did you accept that as fact? Because we can't go and say, well, I didn't believe them that nothing was the matter, right? Or I didn't believe them that they weren't mad at me. Well, you need to accept, if you're going to check it and they tell you something, you have to pull yourself out and go, okay, well, then something's wrong with me that I'm perceiving something that isn't there. And that's what I teach them to do is check their own perception by asking their partner, or it can be in a work environment. You get people again that are like, very ambitious people that are, so worried, and we have this climate, people can feel like they're in a secure job, but you never really know. And if there's layoffs happening or something, all of a sudden they might go, their perception might be that, oh, well, my boss really has had it out for me. You want to check that and say, well, what would be the evidence for that? And see what comes up. And if there is evidence, go talk to your boss. If there isn't evidence, you have to go, well, what's going on for me? Okay, well, I might be scared. And because I'm scared that there might be a layoff, or I'm scared because it feels like people have been upset. So I want to check that. We walk around just kind of like unconsciously sensing things, right? So our unconscious is what's telling us what we're perceiving. And it's filled with all of the stuff that we come to the table with on, from our life, from day one up until today. Every day we're adding more to that baggage that we have. And so we have to be really careful and mindful about how we're bouncing around emotionally in our environment.
I think what you speak to, which is so profound, is that identifying the problem or the block may be a substantial part of the effort of actually getting rid of it, because sometimes we're addressing the wrong, not necessarily the wrong thing, but the thing that's not going to get us past what is actually messing us up. Do you find that that's true in your practice, that people are misidentifying what's really the issue at the heart of why they're there?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of people that are, they kind of come in and say, this is what's going on for me. I need it fixed. So just to kind of appease things, we'll go into the tips of like, well, let's try these things to work around it for right now, but keep coming so that we can actually deal with what's going on. And because it's easy to come up with tips. I've got lots of tips on how to get around some of these mental blocks, but it's actually getting to the heart of it. And that's why that's the deeper stuff of the perception, what do you know about your own history that influences how you orient yourself in the world and your environment. what relationships have symbolized for you in the past and growing up. All those.
Yeah, that's a question I have. Does it always start with our past? Because I'm going to get into this too with Jennifer, our next guest, who we're going to bring on in just a minute. But I'm just wondering that, your website says break free from your past to design yourself a better future. I'm throwing your words at you. Yes, I am. And I'm just wondering, does it always start with our past?
It does.
It might not be a simple answer, right?
Right, but it does. I mean, that's what the process of therapy is all about. I mean, we can do things that are in the moment and teach people to function better in the short term. But if we don't deal with the underlying issues, those issues keep coming back around. So there are ways to certainly unblock people where they don't have to deal with that anymore. I can think of clients that, have had at different times severe stress-induced obsessive compulsive disorder where they couldn't even touch their own garbage cans because they were so afraid of germs, so they had to have friends come over to take the garbage out. And it was stress-induced, but it came from a lifetime of trauma that ended up with them in situations in young adulthood that just brought it to the surface by way of all these unconscious fears. And they didn't understand what was at the root of it. And then we kind of worked through the trauma stuff. And what do you know, the obsessive compulsive stuff went away. Now, I don't want to oversimplify that because there are people where the OCD is so severe, they do struggle with it for years, sometimes decades, and they're medicated and everything else. But there are times when people can really do the deep work, and, it depends on level of are they insightful enough? Do they want to know, or do they just want to know, how do I not do these things anymore? So, it all does start in the past, but it doesn't have to, we don't have to live in it. And the process of our therapy doesn't have to be living in the past also. It can be, well, let's look at, very often it's just, well, how do you think that situation when you were 7 influenced, what was going on today? Because that kind of feels like the same feeling was going on for you. It's like something that would come up in a session, or again, the parents' relationship is something that's really at the forefront of how people orient themselves in their own relationship. So we do talk about that a lot, but it's kind of like I take the full assessment, the full history, and then it's kind of like drawing it out piece by piece. Where do you think this fit in the past? When did you last feel like that? Or when did you first feel like that?
All of this is so fascinating. And, I want our listeners to enjoy the benefit of listening to more of what you have to offer, because you have these 2 great podcasts. Where do we find you online?
Sure. So the website is coachingthroughchaos.com, and they can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/coachingthroughchaos. And I also host weekly chats, video chats, Tuesdays at 3:30 on facebook.com/Dr. Colleen Mullen. And those are short little helpful chats where we might deal with like mental blocks and pick one and kind of give a few tips on that. And as far as with the and then Shrink to Shrink on Film, you can find wherever any podcasts are found, on iTunes, Stitcher, all those other podcast directories. So,
Colleen, you said I was busy. It sounds like you're pretty busy too.
I know, and also down here at the practice, we're like rapidly expanding. I've just added about 5 people to the team. We're going to have coaches, substance abuse counselors, health and wellness experts, and licensed therapists. So I was carrying this all myself for a long time, and grabbed everybody in. So the Coaching Through Chaos podcast is an interview-based show.
Okay, I'm sorry, Colleen. We have to get to Jennifer. I hate to do this to you, but we're running quickly out of time. You are involved in so much, and you have so many good things to say to about our mental health, as well as I'm sure that rolls into physical and other. So your main website though is what?
coachingthroughchaos.com.
coachingthroughchaos.com. Okay, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate your time. We'd love to have you back. And, you just have so much great things to say. Kristen,
Thank you so much.
People like Colleen really make me think
It's true.
about, what's going on inside my head, which I'm already thinking too much. So I think that's my own issue. But I want to bring on Jennifer. Jennifer Longmore, fascinatingly enough, is a forensic investigator turned international best-selling author and master healer. She's a fifth-generation intuitive guide who has conducted over 30,000 intuitive coaching sessions with the who's who of actors, professional athletes, CEOs of large corporations, and other influential luminaries. You can learn more about her work at souljourneys.ca. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited. 30,000 coaching sessions. That's a lot of talking.
That's a lot of talking. I like to talk.
Well, you look like you're 18 years old on your website. It must be.
Oh my goodness, I fell in love with you.
Eating the raw vegetables, or what do you do there? You have a raw diet or something that makes you look so great?
I've been raw vegan for about 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty picky about what I put into my body.
Well, you have such a unique background. I would just like, it's really unique, and it encompasses a lot of different things. Can you just tell us a little bit about your experience and what it is exactly that you're doing now?
I would love to, yes. I definitely had a very woo, very healy-feely upbringing, but still grounded in, reality. And my grandfather used to solve crimes with the police as a psychic medium. So he had a lot of fun with me because he realized that I had this gift at a very young age. And so he would send me all these very, almost like Eckhart Tolle equivalent type of heady books that I would be reading at age 7. But I would go to school and people would look at me so strange. And I realized that my knowingness, which I just thought was normal, was freaking people out because I knew things that I didn't realize other people didn't know. So
and you learned this when you were like a toddler, right?
Yes. Yeah. I was really young, and I'm very motivated to help people feel comfortable, and I don't like people feeling weird around me. And so I would adjust myself, and I became really good at being a chameleon, which is how I developed a great poker face, which made me perfect to go into forensic investigation. But all of that to say that I learned at a very young age that it was a lot easier for other people if I was anything but myself. And I'm sure people listening can relate to that. We all have something, right, that happens in our life where we realize it's a lot easier to be something other than just be ourselves. And then we spend decades unraveling, what the conversation you were just having before, decades unraveling all of these past beliefs and projections and experiences that get projected onto us so we can finally get to this place again where we feel whole and we realize that there's nothing wrong with us and we can just be ourselves. And if that's not okay for other people, then they can go and deal with that. It's not our job to try and make ourselves accommodating to someone else's needs.
Now, do you find yourself constantly going back to childhood with people?
Yes.
It's funny because when I started my own spiritual journey, probably about 3 to 4 years ago, and I would snicker and roll my eyes every time someone I was talking to, a coach or whoever it was, would say, well, you got to go back into your past and you have to, figure out with the relationship with your mom, the relationship with your dad. I thought, oh God, this again. It's everybody keeps saying this, but obviously through the years, I've realized that this is really true. Now, how do you tie all that? How do you get somebody like me who was so, suspicious about the whole process? How do you get someone like me to kind of just turn me around and say, okay, you know what? I hired you for a certain, number of sessions or whatever it is. What am I going to do with her? Or how am I going to get her turned around?
That's a perfect question, and you would be a perfect client because I'm not interested in spending 10 years dissecting someone's childhood with them. I think that's counterproductive, and I think it's an energy of distraction, and it keeps us from living our life when we're spending all kinds of energy revisiting something we've already lived rather than focusing on what we want to create. There's a time and a place to look at our past for sure, and I think awareness is enough, right? So we can have a memory and say, oh, no wonder I'm relating to money in such and such a way. That's how my parents used to do it. Or no wonder I'm relating to my money like an ex-partner because, I'm unconsciously projecting that. But the awareness is enough. As soon as we have an aha moment, that's the shift. As soon as we gasp and we say, aha, we've had a shift. We shift our perception and we attract experiences into our life based on the perceptions that we hold. So we actually are better served by focusing on making sure our perceptions are what we actually want them to be, because our perception is what creates our experiences. It's what attracts certain things to us. And then the more we attract experiences we want to have, the more we anchor that as a belief. And we realize, it is possible for me to have true love, or it is possible for me to have more than enough in my bank account, or it is possible for me to have the body that I've been craving to have for a long time. So like I said, it's great to look at the childhood stuff. And I spent a lot of years doing that. Personally, but also in the field that I worked in. But I'm a big fan of let's get solution focused. Let's go in, let's figure out what you want to create, and then let's look at how you can create that.
Kristen, what do you think?
I think it's all really fascinating what you're speaking to. And one of the questions I had for you when I was just looking over your background and your talents, what do you think the relationship is between blocks and our fears? Do you think fear-based thinking engenders a block? Do you think really blocks are really a manifestation of our fears, or is it something else?
Oh, Kristen, you come up with the best questions.
I have a lot of time on my hands.
That is a good question. It's kind of like a what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
I could sit here and put my feet up and just have Kristen ask you all the questions, because that was so amazing. I can't even touch it.
I'm going to put my feet up too.
But you need to tell us how, Jennifer. Where, when, how?
Okay. Well, based on what I can see in my experience with talking with people, is that when we're in the womb, we're a pure energy. We come out of the womb, we're still a pure energy, and then all of a sudden we absorb other people's stuff like a sponge. Most of what we experience in life, most of our perceptions and our beliefs don't initially belong to us. We inherit them, we observe them. Even now we can adopt beliefs, when we've got a new president in office and there's some things that are being created and people's perceptions are being influenced by whether they're willing to be in awareness of what reality is versus what people are being told. That's just an example. But this happens in all areas of life. What our body should look like, what our bank account should look like. We're cool if we wear this outfit. We're not cool if we don't. We have all kinds of expectations placed on us. And at the core of who we are as human beings, we all want to be loved, accepted, and respected. We come in with that core need, and we all fear abandonment and rejection. So our actions are either driven by wanting to attract more love, acceptance, and respect, or to avoid being abandoned and rejected. That's what drives how we spend money. That's what drives how we relate to other people. That's what drives what we put up with or don't put up with in relationships. So the fear is really stuff that we absorb, and then it can be compounded by the experiences that we go out and recreate for ourselves. But it really does start with other people, unknowingly, most of the time, projecting that onto us.
What I think you're talking about is the power of intention. I'm sorry, Judy.
No, it's just so many questions. Go ahead.
And I wanted to know, how do you feel about blocks? Are they an opportunity to examine or clarify our intentions, or are having clarified intentions a way of mitigating blocks?
I think blocks can be both. Blocks can either show us what's not working that we need to pay attention to. Usually we are tolerating certain things in our life, and if we don't deal with what we're tolerating, it starts to be it goes from a mountain into a molehill into a mountain. Whatever I'm trying to say. It can
manifest physically, you mean, too?
Yeah. Well, yes, but also just, I'm thinking of team members that I've hired over the years. Let's say that I've got some nigglies around them, things aren't quite adding up, or maybe it's just not working out, but it's not painful enough for me to address it, so I just let it sit there. And then one day the fire goes, right? And I'm like, I have to deal with this now. I have no choice. So I feel like blocks create that for us sometimes, where they were already issues, but we just weren't able to see them or weren't willing to see them until they became really uncomfortable. I also feel like blocks are indications of whether we want something badly enough or whether we're still aligned to what we thought we wanted or the path that we thought we wanted to be on. Are we actually living our path, or are we living other people's path? So blocks can be, well, I believe they're a gift anyways. They're revealing stuff that's asking to have attention paid to them. And then the meaning that we place on the block is up to us. We can either look at it as a gift, or we can look at it as a big hardship and turn it into a big dramatic, thing where we're involving everyone in the conversation and spending, tons of time talking about it.
Do you ever have trouble trying to explain to people what you do?
Yes, it depends on the person, and I just kind of tune into awareness and say, okay, well, what do I feel this person can absorb right now? Where do I feel their head is at? And then from there, try to explain it.
On your website, you say when you're in the know, people want to know how you know. Okay, so let us know how you know, and what do you mean by that? Would people kind of look at you and I guess they hear the word psychic and just think, oh my gosh, how can she be psychic, or what drives her type of thing? Is that what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. When you have sensations, or when you just have a sense of knowing something and you can't explain it, it's really hard to explain it to other people. It's not a tangible thing. And we're so conditioned to be logical in this world that things that don't meet those expectations can be a little bit wobbly for people, right? It's harder for them to absorb it. But people are still curious about it, and people still want to come and find out, well, how do you know that? And a lot of times people will be questioned about how they know things, and they will interpret that questioning as something other than it is. Right? A lot of times people are just curious. They just don't understand. And if we can try to explain something to them, we all have moments where we just kind of know, oh, I should turn left at this stop sign instead of turning right. I don't know why. I just should. And then we find out later, oh, there was a big traffic jam for 8 hours on that particular part of the street. Had I turned right, I would have been stuck in that traffic jam. We have knowingness all the time. A lot of times we don't realize it, or we call it something else, or we just kind of are oblivious to it, but it ends up, helping us without us really realizing it. And other times we have knowingness, but we don't act on it because we feel like we need to question the bejeebers out of it until we have solid proof to justify why we know what we know.
I want to take the magic wand challenge. What is that?
The magic wand challenge is basically, I'm wanting to show people how, in fact, we are our own magic wand. We make things happen. We have the power and the speed to make things happen as intentionally and as quickly as we would like for it to happen. And we can also make our business a magic wand. We can touch a lot of lives with our business. We can touch a lot of lives with the money that is generated through our business. And I want to get people out of the let's be distracted and let's analyze all the reasons why I'm not moving forward in my business, and let's just have fun. And let's see what kind of, pixie dust we can sprinkle around the world, basically. Let's make business fun again, because so many people view it as a burden or a responsibility. They avoid it. There's so many components of business people don't like, and yet they can't imagine doing anything else. So let's figure out a way to return back to a place of awe and wonder and adventure, which is where the magic happens, and step away from the fear and the analysis paralysis and the procrastination and all of these other things that, get in the way of the flow.
Perfection paralysis, like Dr. Colleen Mullen was talking about.
Yes.
That is something that I can definitely relate to. It's tough starting something and then having to be absolutely perfect at it every time. It's a big head trip. So the Magic Wand Challenge, so you sign up for it. It goes for 10 days. Did I read that right?
Yes.
And so how can someone can really change their perspective in 10 days, or what is the result you're looking for with people taking this?
I would like people to have fun in business again and stop making their business about them and start making their business about serving other people. As soon as we contract into perfection paralysis, analysis paralysis, worry, doubt, avoidance, invisibility, or any of these other things that can go on with entrepreneurs,
because our issues and our tissues get kicked up, right? So when we make it about us, we start to contract. We pull away. We're worried about what people will think of us. We're worried about disappointing people. We're worried about harming people. There's all kinds of reasons why people don't move forward in their business. If we can return to, I don't need to make it about me. I can just make it about who can I help today. Business is a lot more fun and there's a lot more flow. So we have to get out of our own way in order to return to the way business is meant to be, which is we're here creating transformational services for people to benefit and have shifts and receive what they came to our business to receive.
Now, you founded a school for Akashic readings. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. So what is an Akashic reading?
An Akashic reading is me or someone like me that's been trained to open up this blueprint of your soul. Your soul has basically an energetic document or, an invisible roadmap of all of the things it's experienced and all of the things that it's still wishing to experience or needing to experience to master certain things. So in this lifetime, for example, we choose our parents, we choose where we're going to live, we choose our body type, the color of our skin, different illnesses. We choose all kinds of things to help us evolve our soul in a certain way. And we're too close to that. So a lot of times it's easier to understand, well, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What's my contribution? What am I here to master? What am I here to give back? When someone else is accessing that information on our behalf.
Dang it. We gotta have a longer show, Kristen.
It's true. Or we need to be like Bill Maher and then take it to YouTube after the official broadcast.
I was thinking for a while that 50 minutes was too long. Now I'm like, wait a minute. We had to, it's just amazing what so many questions. Do you have any more that before we kind of wrap this up that you want to ask her, Kristen?
It's Akashic records and things like that are infinitely fascinating to me because I act and sometimes I have to really explore all the different parts of myself and various time, space, realities to find things to use. When someone enters this work or this process of inquiry into that, what do you think is the best intention to set to kind of enter that?
I think always the best intention is just please show me whatever I need to hear, see, know at this moment in time to really serve my highest good and my highest purpose.
Yes. I feel like that cat meme, yes.
It sounds like it all kind of comes down to almost like a basis of meditation. Mm-hmm. In a way.
Well, the Akashic records are in the same state in the brain as the theta brainwaves. So the theta brainwaves are where we, program and deprogram our consciousness and our subconscious, and the Akashic records is in the same, frequency, I'll say, as that. So it can be a very meditative place, and in fact, a lot of actors and other artists and creatives are really drawn to the Akashic records because there's so much inspiration that comes through because it is inspired, right? It is a direct connection to source. So there's a lot of neat things that happen for people when they paint with their records open, or when they dance, or when they're trying on a different role for size. Maybe they're having to tap into things they hadn't tapped into before. I have a lot of creatives that come for training with me.
So how do we connect with you if we want to explore this more or other topics on your website? Because your blog is fascinating because you talk about scarcity thinking and you talk about all the different baggage that we bring in and how to process that in a spiritually conscious way. How do we connect with you?
Well, people can connect with me directly on my website. There's a contact page, so that's souljourneys.ca. I also spend an inordinate amount of time on Facebook because I really meet a lot of cool people there. So I'm on Facebook, Jennifer Longmore, and then the challenge that you mentioned, Judy, is in my group called the Purpose Posse, and that starts next week. It's a free challenge, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So those are probably the best ways for people to get in touch with me.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Kristen. I don't want to end it, but yeah, you want to end it?
I know, you don't want to end
blame
it,
on you.
I know, my heart is expanded, my mind is expanded, my spirit is expanded. I'm sure Judy's feeling the vibes too, I can tell, because she, bubbly Judy is quiet and contemplative, and we have to say goodbye, Jennifer, even though we don't want to say goodbye. But connect with Jennifer, connect with Colleen online. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we're going to be talking Mother's Day next week and coming up, and the editor-in-chief of Working Mother magazine will be here along with another fellow mom who's founded Women's Wealth Revolution. I like that revolution. Linda Albright, she's coming on the show. It's all here on LA Talk Radio, or go to whatwomenwantradio.com for more info.